Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second in a series of talks under the Professional Music Leadership Speaker Series. My name is Steven Ehrlick. Lindsay Unwin's in the house. Yay. I chose to invite Lindsay to speak to you because she's quite extraordinary. Lindsay is the COO of SALXCO. And they have artists like The Weeknd, Swedish House Mafia, Diddy, Brandy, French Montana, Metro Boomin, and many, many more. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So you are a Canadian from Victoria.
Yep.
And as a young adult, you're into the Queen Street West scene. You're at York University. And somehow you become the first or second employee of a company of maybe 3 people.
Yep.
And now you're the COO.
Yes.
That's a bit of a journey.
Yes.
So by way of introduction of yourself, maybe describe that journey to us.
Yeah. So met my boss. I went to the Harris Institute and took some music business classes there. I met my boss through one of my teachers. I started interning for free for like 6 months. I was super, super hungry to get into the industry. Was dying to get a job and work, and also needed to pay my rent. So I was like, I'll do whatever, like scrub toilets, whatever. So started as an intern, became Sal, our CEO's executive assistant, did that for 5 years. Executive assistant is a great place to really learn everything. You're like the nucleus of the company, you know what's going on with everything. So that was a really good, just learned a lot of really good skills there, really good experience, and just started to kind of move my way up. I started there in 2010. We signed The Weeknd in 2011, and it just took off from there. I was the first employee, and when we signed The Weeknd, I just jumped in, started doing all his day-to-day, everything from A to Z. And then maybe around like 2015, 2016, I kind of took a break from that, started doing more of the business at the company, running the company, had a really strong interest in business and how things work, and wanted to kind of work on that side. And I was promoted to COO a few years ago, and that's what I do now. So
along the way, you're kind of falling forward continually. How did you, you must have said, I'm a total fraud, I don't know what I'm doing. So how did you sort of keep going and keep learning and keep convincing yourself that you could do this?
I had a thirst to learn. I wanted to learn. I love to understand how things work, the inner workings I want to understand, and I just learned everything, so I had the confidence to be in rooms where I'm like, oh no, I know how that works, I can do that, and just ask questions constantly, always learning. The jobs that people don't want to do, like, hey, do you want to go drop off this toothbrush to the airport at 4 a.m.? No, probably most people don't want to do that. I was like, I'll do it. So, just putting myself in those situations, being visible, I think that really helped me. Yeah.
We have professional music students here, creative industry students, RTA, and other programs. And they're here, most of them, if not all, because they want that career in the music business. And when young lawyers come to me and say, how did you become an entertainment lawyer? I can tell the story, but you can't follow my path. But there's always a lesson in there. So what do you think the lesson is for how you got from A to Z for them? Yeah,
I think looking back, visibility is really important. So going to all the shows, going to everything you're invited to. If you're invited to a meeting and maybe you don't really need to be there, but just go anyways, taking all these opportunities that come across your desk, do them all. Fit as much in as you can as a young person, because you just don't know who you're going to meet in those rooms. I think it's really important to put yourself out there and be visible.
Yeah. I always say just show up.
Just
say yes.
Show up to everything. Say yes. Do it. Believe in yourself. Invest in yourself. Say yes to everything.
Great. So my experience in Canada working at majors, the women rose to quite high positions. President of BMG, President of Sony, VP marketing. You've worked here, you've worked in the U.S., and How have you found the acceptance of women into higher positions in the music industry?
I think it's getting better every day. I think definitely in the last 5 years, there's been a real big support of women executives and women rising to all the way to the top, and not just like VP, but being like, you look at Jody Gerson, who's, head of UMPG, like massive publishing company in the US. She's running that. You look at Michelle Anthony at UMG, she's COO there running that. I think people are really supportive, and at the end of the day, there are biases and stuff, like, you're female, you're male, you're black, you're white, whatever it is. But really, I think it's like, are you doing a good job? Like, how hard are you working? And like, what's your output? Like, if you're doing the best job by like a mile in front of other people, they're going to promote you. So be the best at your craft. That's what I would say.
And how'd you get into the advocacy part of it?
I think probably from personal experience, I didn't really have a mentor or a female role model. And I really wanted to do that for other women, because it's tough out there, and it's hard being the only girl at the meetings, being the only woman in this, only woman in that. And just to have somebody to even just look up to, like, even if I don't know you, you don't know me, just to have a positive role model is I think it's really important. It's just, you find your likeness in them, and you're like, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. So.
Well, I go back to the first question for a little bit. So I asked you this last night,
Yeah.
but I'm going to ask you again.
Okay.
So you're into the Queen Street scene.
Yes.
Which means, indie rock.
I was a big hipster and only wore American Apparel.
So who was like your favorite?
I'm not joking.
Who was your favorite band back then?
Actually, my favorite band was this band that came out of university called Jane's Party, which my friend Danica, who I went to universities here, it's her husband's in the band, and they were like my favorite band. Like, we used to go to all their shows. We go to the Horseshoe, we go to the Cameron, we go to the Silver Dollar. Like, I was so into indie rock, and like was just what I really like to do.
So you're this ripped jeans t-shirt kind of gal, and then you get this job, and the Weeknd's your first act, and you gravitate to hip hop and R&B type music. And I asked you last night, like, were you always into hip hop? And that's when you told me no, I was.
No,
but you love it now, and that's what you told me. And so how did that transition, and what caused the transition, other than the fact that you had to work this music?
Yeah. I mean, again, like, I just wanted a job so bad, and I had people telling me like, oh, you're selling out, you're going into commercial music or whatever. And at that time, we were a company called CP Records, and like, if you looked at the top 10 in Canada, we had all the hits. Like, we had Danny Fernandez, Jordan, like, we had big acts. And I was like, well, if they're doing top 10, like, they're doing something right. I was so hungry for experience that I was just down to learn and down to work for them, whether it was indie music or hip hop or commercial music or whatever. I just wanted the experience. So that's kind of how it happened. But the cool thing about rap and hip hop is it's kind of indie in a sense too, because they're rapping from personal experience. They're coming from difficult backgrounds, stuff like that. So that was really something that I fell in love with too, is like, these rappers are speaking from, these experiences that they came from, or these tough situations that they've been in. And I don't know, it really, it opened my eyes. Yeah, I'm so glad I took the job. Yeah.
What are some of your favorite acts now?
You can't ask me that.
Okay, next question. Okay, what's your favorite act not on the label?
Ooh.
Or not in the management company?
I love Charlotte Day Wilson. She's Canadian, she's from Toronto, I think, but she's amazing. I love her. She's incredible.
Another thing we talked about last night around the table was revolved around the word no.
Oh.
So, and we talked about when someone said no to you, and what do you do, and how do you get around the obstacle. But also, I think it was Mike who said you must have to say no a lot.
Yes.
So maybe talk about the two sides of no, like how no doesn't stop you, and how your no's have to kind of stop something.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say if someone tells you no, you're talking to the wrong person. Very early days, before we had any hits or anything, like, everyone would tell us no. Like, your R&B's too dark. You'll never you're never going to be on the radio. Go work with this producer or something like that. And we're like, yeah, we don't really want to do that. Going to stay in our own lane and, you know, stay unique to the vision and to the craft. And I think it's important to, people tell you no, just go back, strategize, think about it again, think different ways you can approach things, think creatively, ask people around you how you can approach something differently. And if people say no to you, just ask them why. Like, why are you saying no? Why? You know, get feedback. Feedback is great. It's a different perspective, gives you a look into what they're thinking, how they're thinking. So that's one part of it. I do say no with my clients, mostly because my clients don't want to do a lot of things, but that's okay. So yeah, I mean, sometimes a ton of opportunities come across your desk. Some of them fit the brand, some of them don't. And understanding your client, knowing your client, you know what they're going to do and not going to do. And, you know, if you know them well, you don't want to make them do something that they're not going to do, even if like, yeah, it'll be good for the brand, it's going to get you more radio airplay or whatever it is. You know, you want to stay true to them, because if they're miserable doing it, it's going to be a bad outcome anyway. So understanding your client's really important, what they're going to do, so you can navigate through all the things that fly on your desk and make the right decisions for them ultimately.
So what happens when they say no?
I mean, it's up to them, right? Yeah. Manager, we're an advisor, we're someone that says, hey, I think you should do this. Lots of times they say no to things. I'm like, you should probably do this. And they don't want to do it. That's on them, you know? It's par for the course.
So other than saying no, what's a typical day like? I know, when I was an entertainment lawyer or as a professor, like, oh, your job's so interesting. And it is.
Yeah.
On sort of the macro scale, but day to day, it's a job. So what's a typical day look like?
Typical day. I love to get up early. I get up at like 5 because I have quiet time in the morning and no one is up at that hour and they can't bother me. So I get up really early. I do all my emails. I kind of look at like any emergencies that have come in overnight, because there's always like fires to put out. So I'll look at like time sensitive things and kind of strategize. I'm like, oh, that's going to be a disaster. I better figure out what I'm going to do with that, or that kind of stuff. So I kind of strategize in the morning. And then throughout the day, it's like lots of different things will come up. Like, things fall through, like mistakes happen, dealing with that on the fly. And then meeting with all our departments, meeting with clients, meeting with partners, Spotify, Apple Music, all that stuff, PROs, SOCAN, BMI, ASCAP, meeting with them, meeting with publishers, meeting with labels, meeting with like our different departments, our branding department, meeting with our marketing department, publishing, film, TV. It's a packed day, that's for sure.
And how important is your assistant?
Very important, very important. I have an incredible team, and they allow me to do what I do, so I could not do it alone, that's for sure.
Let's talk about artists now. Well, I was going to ask you, like, what's the biggest fire you ever had to put out, without naming the artist, of course, or if the funniest or the silliest?
Just like, you'll work on something for like a year, set everything up, and it's like the morning of the shoot, and it's, there's millions and millions of dollars on the line. And the artist is like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Oh, okay. And you have to call the person and be like, oh, so like something's come up. We're not going to be able to do it. And, of course they're freaking out. They've invested a ton of money. You have an agreement in place. So it's like stuff like that is really difficult, because you don't really have any control over that. You can't prepare for that. You can just try and like let them down eloquently and say, I'm really, really sorry it didn't work out, but I hope we can work together in the future. Yeah.
I worked for a guy who signed Guns N' Roses, and they were shooting the Terminator film, and they were doing a video for it, and he had to go into the Axl Rose's house and get him off a closet shelf.
Oh.
He was in the fetal position.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's fun. Yeah, I haven't had to do that yet, but probably will happen.
So what's the most important thing an artist can do to become appealing to a management company, or some of the elements that become appealing?
Yeah.
And do they find you, or do you find them?
I think as an artist, be unique to yourself and your vision and your path. Don't try and be like anybody else. The best thing you can do is like hone in on like what your branding is, how you're different, what your sound is, and just stay true to that, because like we don't need another Weeknd, we don't need another Dua Lipa. we want you and your uniqueness and your sound, right? That's what's going to set you apart. So I would say definitely find out what that is and be the best at it, in terms of finding acts, like they come through managers, they'll maybe find them online, like TikTok, anything like that. Or like other managers will call us, be like, hey, like, I don't know anything about rap and hip hop. Like, do you want to take this client? They're really amazing. They're this. So they kind of comes from anywhere. But definitely when you seek like a unique artist, a unique vision, a unique voice, that is really, really important. Yeah.
So last night we were talking about artists, and one of the people at the table said, someone had told an artist sort of two traits: huge ego and massive insecurity. And we all kind of thought about that and kind of agreed about that. I've worked with artists all my professional career, and one thing I know is they aren't like you and me. Yeah. Like you have to understand them, but you can't really be in their shoes because they're artists. And I mean, I don't know how musical you are. I know how musical I'm not. But how do you sort of understand that but still have to deal with both the ego and the insecurity?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to put yourself in their shoes, and think there's a lot going on, like you just like a lot of like emotions running, a lot of insecurity, worried about their music. They're comparing themselves to other artists all the time. They're always asking like, why am I not on the radio, or why am I not in the Hot 100? Why am I not in the top 10? Got constant voice in their head. So you just want to like, as a manager, do your best to like make them free-minded, try and take some of that off. Like, don't worry about why you're not in the top. I'm going to figure that out for you. Like, I'm going to work on it. You go be your creative self over here, go make music, do what you're good at. Let me do that part. Yeah.
Okay, thinking about our crowd again, of course, everyone now wants to work for you, or someone just like you. What are some of the qualities you look for hiring staff, hiring interns?
Yeah.
And what would you recommend a young intern do to make an impression, make connections with companies like yours?
Yeah. I think really important to have a positive attitude, because the music industry is really tough and it's difficult. It's not like an easy road, an easy path. Having a positive attitude, especially when like things are like falling down over here and you have to talk to a client, like everything's gonna be fine, it's gonna be amazing, I'm gonna figure it out, don't worry. You really have to like let them know that, because if you don't do that, they're gonna start freaking out. They're gonna be like, well, I'm not going on stage, or it's just gonna like deteriorate from there. So I think having a positive attitude is really important in approaching difficult situations. Like, hey, we're going to figure this out. It's okay. That's number one. I would say number two, someone who is a self-starter and can like figure things out on their own a little bit. So like if I give you a project, and I'm not asking you to, land on the moon, but like you have Google, like use it, you know what I mean? I'm not going to tell you every single thing, and I expect you to like come with some ideas of how to approach this, things like that. That's really important. Passion for music. Like, you need to be passionate about your job. It's such a tough job, and it's really hard and difficult at times, that you really have to have a passion for it, and a passion for your artists and your clients. Else your days are going to be very, very long. Yeah.
So what would you tell your intern self today?
Yes, that's a good question. I would, first thing I would say I kind of touched on earlier is be visible. Go to all the things, show up at all the meetings. If you're invited to like a conference or a Canadian Music Week or South by Southwest, whatever it is, go to all the things, show up and introduce yourself, you know what I mean? I know it's scary, like sometimes you're like the only intern in the room, but just go up and say hi to everybody. People are actually quite nice. So just go up, say hi, introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Bob, I work at this, I do this, like what do you do? Ask questions and learn. I think that's something everyone can do, and it doesn't really cost you any money, and it's like you investing in yourself and introducing yourself, you're making connections, which is great. That's something I would tell my younger self. The second thing I would tell my younger self would be, and this is something you kind of learn with experience, but kind of understanding your emotions and understanding what fear is and kind of being able to take feedback. So you're going to get a lot of feedback in your career, and people are going to tell you, oh, you're this, you're that, you did this wrong, and they're going to give you feedback. So being able to take feedback is really important, and take constructive criticism, and don't get defensive, because that's the worst thing you can do is like, oh, well, I didn't do that, and no. It's like, listen, they have a different perspective than you. Take their feedback, write it down, and learn something from it. Ask questions. Why did I do that wrong? Or why do you think it's like this? Or, ask questions and get feedback on what you could have done better. It's really, 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 really valuable. That is one thing. Second thing is, like I said before, it's scary out there. It's kind of like the wild, wild west, I call it sometimes, but try not to operate from a place of fear, because, and don't make fear-based decisions. So you're going to come into moments in your life where there's going to be something big on the line. It's really, really scary. You're going to have to go into a radio station. You're going to have to go talk to a big executive, and just try and understand that fear kind of rides shotgun with you throughout your career. It's always going to be there, but if you can manage the fear and understand the fear and make rational decisions, and putting fear aside, you're going to make better decisions and you're going to be a lot more confident. So just understand that fear is natural and normal, and you're going to be in situations where it's scary, it's tough, it's difficult, but just put that to the side, center yourself, make rational decisions, and just go in confident, keep your eye on the goal, and keep your blinders on.
Do you feel like a role model? You're here kind of as a role model, and
sure.
it's kind of something that would, I hope I'm not a role model. Maybe I am. But it's a responsibility, and it's kind of an odd thing in some
Yeah. I mean, I guess I am.
And
Yeah.
And do you have role models?
I'm my own role model, I'm not going to lie. Listen, anyone who's climbed to the top, any female, anyone from an underrepresented group or coming from a difficult circumstance and get to a high level in their career, I think is a role model, just because of what that you have to overcome to get there is really exceptional. I don't really have a role model. I look to certain people and think, wow, that's really amazing, look what they've accomplished, but I kind of just do my own thing, work hard, and I set goals for myself and try and achieve them. Yeah.
I told you last night that in my business and music class, they had to do a bio on one of the speakers.
Right.
Lots of them did. You.
Oh, that's nice.
And I asked them to come up with some questions, and some of these questions come from them, and here's one I know comes from them, and it's an interesting question. I wouldn't have thought of it. How are you able to motivate yourself and artists during the pandemic?
Oh, great question.
Here's pop up. Okay.
That's a great question. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, when we saw that this was not a 3-month thing and actually something that was very serious, we kind of did an all hands call with all our clients, all of our team, and said, listen, most people are going to put their feet up. Oh, I can't tour, I can't record. No, I'm going to take a break. We did the opposite. We were we're getting to work. You're going to do Zoom sessions. You're going to figure out your home studio. You're going to concentrate. We're going to use this time as a gift and just work really hard and create during that time that we had. And a lot of great stuff came out of that. We had a lot of great albums, a lot of great music. And we just used that time as time to hunker down. So we just told everybody listen, this is what we're doing. We're working hard. We're not putting our feet up, and we're getting to work.
What was a highlight during that time?
Huh?
What was sort of a highlight during that time? Yes, it's the pandemic, but we did this. Recording or...
Blinding Lights. Yeah, the biggest song in the world ever. Yeah, and that was really scary because his album release for After Hours was due on, had set it up for March 19th. And that's when the world shut down. We had all this stuff planned, millions and millions, crazy budgets put into videos, release party, activations, globally. And we had to cancel it all and completely pivot to an online digital strategy. And it worked. So that was kind of crazy. Yeah.
Were you at the Super Bowl?
I was.
How was that?
That was insane. I cried the whole time. I didn't even know what's going on. It was so wild. It's the hugest stage in the world. It's massive. It was really interesting because the stadium, because of COVID, was only like a third full. So we were kind of tasked with putting together a performance that would translate live, but would also translate to a lot of people at home. We had tried to put in a bunch of different elements that would translate to both. I think it worked. Yeah.
The vision was all the staging because it was quite extraordinary.
Abel's vision. Yeah, we work with obviously lighting and stage designers and stuff, but he has a vision and yeah.
Speaking of artists, how does more not creatively, but what's the process for signing artists? Like, how do you go about signing them? How do you choose which ones you're going to manage? Yeah. Essentially, like, what are the criteria?
Yeah, kind of what I said before, which is unique. We don't want anyone that is like all the other ones, or, just want someone that's doing something different. And also someone that has a vision. You have to have a creative vision of some kind and know what you're doing. You can't be like, oh, I'm kind of like this. But it's like, no, I'm this artist and this is what I go for. This is my sound. Obviously that will develop over time with management and coaching or whatever, but you have to have some kind of vision, So think about what that is. Try and make a cohesive plan or brand around you and your music and what it sounds like,
On the other side of the table, how do you choose your managers? Do they come from a similar background, similar skill set? Have they come out of college? Are they off the street?
Yeah. We get a lot of managers just coming to us wanting to work for us. A lot of the people that are managers started out as project managers or assistant, and we promoted them to manager just because they trained them and molded them to how we want our managers to be, so they come that way. A lot of people who've been with the company for a while and worked their way up, so yeah.
Do they have common characteristics, or are they
Yes.
unique?
Work hard.
Don't sleep.
Love to go to the club. Love to be out at all hours. Management it's a different beast. It's long hours, crazy hours. Things go wrong at 2 a.m. and you have to deal with it. Weekends. It's a different kind of person, but it's like management to me is the best job. It's like you're closest to the art. You're really at the center. You're making decisions. You're working directly with the artist. So I think it's the best spot to be personally.
And it might seem obvious that if you're managing someone, you love them, love their music. But is it necessary? Do you have to love the artist you're working? And I don't mean on a personal level, because you might not get along personally, but do you have to love the artist?
I would say no. I think you have to understand it, and maybe that's not my favorite genre. It's not something I would maybe listen to, but I understand it. I understand their fans. I understand their market. I understand where it lives kind of in the ecosystem. I absolutely think that everyone has different tastes, right? So I think absolutely you can manage someone who it's not your favorite music, but what you have to understand is their fans, how to position them, what to do with them. You can't not like their music and not know what to do with them. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Any questions? Yes.
I was wondering if it was part of your decision to go with the no auto-tune in the Super Bowl performance, or if you were part of that decision, because that was big.
We don't auto-tune anything live. Yeah, no, that's just his natural voice, which is crazy. But yeah, no, we don't do anything like that. Some artists do. Most of our artists don't.
And is that part of your brand, basically, as a
Yeah, live is something that I think you have to work at. Being a live act, it's kind of a different beast. You have to have, get a stage presence. You have to really understand how to command the crowd. I think that's something you get better at. I don't know how far, as an artist today, you're going to go if every single thing is auto-tuned when you perform. You kind of have to be able to perform and sing and do whatever as an artist, So, but we don't really auto-tune anything live now, and not really in the studio either. Yeah, of course.
I remember
little louder, so it'll be
outage
like
of
louder.
routers, and I remember Able was supposed to have a show that day.
Oh yeah, the like internet went out or whatever.
Yes, but you deal with something that happens really quick and that you basically have no control over.
Yeah, you pivot, you know what I mean? You do damage control. You know, we were working with the venue to try and figure out alternative solutions, and you know, there was a certain point in the day when we were just like, this isn't going to work. And you just have to say, you know, we're going to come back and we're going to do the show later. Yeah.
It was really good fun after.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Have you faced celebrity drama?
Celebrity drama. In what sense?
It's all over the internet. They need to post an apology.
Yeah.
Did something wrong.
Yeah.
How do you handle those conversations?
Yeah. It's not easy, you know. Hopefully you have a good publicist. Listen, I mean, we always give them our opinion and say, hey, you know, maybe you shouldn't have done that. You probably need to say sorry and, you know, help them craft that and get that out. And, you know, especially if you've like hurt someone's feelings or said something mean, like always want to make things right. But yeah, it's definitely there. I mean, everything is wide open. Like the internet, everyone has access to everything, can see everything. So it's definitely something that comes up and like stuff goes in the news, You just have to, you handle each case kind of differently. But yeah, there's definitely a strategy there on controlling what the narrative is. So yeah.
Anyone else?
Yes.
So I know that you're saying you're staying true to the artist.
Yep.
And they are musicians. So where does authenticity stand?
Right beside it. Yeah. Yeah. Be authentic, stay true to yourself. Fans can see right through bullshit. They will call you out on it. You know what I mean? They're like, you didn't write that song. That doesn't sound like you, or whatever it is. So I think be authentic, write your own music, like just find out your lane and like what you're trying to say, what you're trying to do, and stick with that. Authenticity, being yourself, being unique is so, so important. We, like I said, we don't want another Miley Cyrus, whatever, you know, we want another you. You're unique for a reason and your music is unique. Stay true to that. Yep.
Yeah.
How do you feel about AI and everything that happened with the Weeknd?
Yeah.
That song taking off and chart, topping the Billboard chart.
Yeah.
They're not them being involved.
Yeah, that was weird. Because I was looking at that, I was like, oh my gosh, did I miss a release? I was like, I'm gonna get fired. And then I was like, wait a second, I was sending it to our team. I was like, what is this? And they were like, oh, that's that like AI thing. I was like, what's AI? I think there's places for it. I don't want them using the Weeknd's voice to make songs. Like that's just not something that it's kind of creepy to me. Like I want live music. I want real vocals. I don't want auto-tune, you know? We live in a world that everything is so manufactured. That's like the opposite of what I want in music. I think AI probably has a place in like medical insurance or something, but in the music industry, I know, like I don't like it. Yeah.
Isabel.
You've spoken a lot about like being a self-starter and making yourself visible. When it comes to kind of maintaining those connections, what advice would you give someone looking to do that?
Like maintaining connections as in like meeting people, like networking, things like that. I think, like I said earlier, do you mean like maintaining connections, like trying to get a job or?
Like establishing connections in the industry, like kind of like maintaining those connections for like your future.
Yeah, I think, listen, I go for coffee a lot. You know, like let's go for coffee. Like I think, you know, I catch up with people all the time. I think that's really important. And like, you know, if you have a new release coming, like we're going to meet with all our partners. We're going to meet with Spotify, Apple, and make sure those relationships stay really strong so that we can leverage them for releases we have. We make sure we're on the right playlist, stuff like that. So I think it's really important. And, you know, have like, you know, maybe quarterly, you go meet everybody. You do not like a road show, but you go out and meet all your connections. You go like, hey, let's go for coffee. We haven't had a coffee recently. Like, what's going on with you? That's really important. Meet people as often as you can. Like, what are you working on? How can we work together? What can we do together? Yeah.
Here and then back to you, and then I'm
Yes.
gonna maybe ask another question.
You mentioned like kind of obstacles or challenges that you've had during the job.
Yep.
Is there anything that you kind of personally went through, or any just obstacles or challenges you faced in terms of just the journey from where you started, like how you got to where you are now?
Yes. Yeah. So many obstacles. Yeah, I think I'm sounding like a broken record, but like a lot of people are going to tell you no. And like when we first signed the Weeknd, everyone said, no, you're, you know, we were in the age of like Usher and Flow Rider where people like glamorizing, going to the club, popping bottles, like whatever. And we was just so the opposite of that, that everyone said no. You know, it was, you're too this, you're too that, da da da. It's important to build a good team if you're an artist around you. People that you trust, people that understand your vision, understand your creative vision, get the music, and that you can go to when you have obstacles, because you will have obstacles. And being able to pivot, you know, like someone releases a song, sounds just like yours, you're like, well, I was gonna put that out tomorrow or something. What do you have in your back pocket that you can do differently? I think being able to have people around you that you trust, thinking strategically when you come up against obstacles is really important, because you absolutely cannot do it all on your own. I think, yeah. Does that answer your question?
How do you deal with a very large sound switch? For example, I remember listening to the House of Balloons and then listening to After Hours and Dawn Fun back to back, and I was like, wait, these are two completely different sounds. How do you deal with an artist that basically switches every single like sound of theirs basically on a dime?
Yeah, you mean, yeah. Well, I mean, listen, artists are like regular people. They evolve over time, right? Their sound evolves. I mean, just the soundscape, like in general of the music industry changes too, like different inspirations come in. I personally love it. I think it's super refreshing. Listen, you like look at Madonna. Madonna's a great example. Every album is different. She always has something different going on. Abel does a great job of that too. Doja Cat, you know. That's really good because that gives me something new to work. It's really difficult to go back to the label every single time and be like, here's an album that sounds just like the last one. You know, it's like, what do you do with that? You've already done that marketing campaign. You've already put that out. If you have a completely new sound, a completely different set of songs, different vision, like that's great. That's fresh new material to work with. That makes my job really easy. So that's a good thing. Yes.
This is more just kind of landing on that, like, what would you say is like one of the best things an up-and-coming or indie artist could do right now to, like, when you're releasing or doing a roll-up or like new music to gain recognition in the industry?
Let me just repeat that. Like, what can an up and coming? No one heard that. When she talks to me in class, I have to lean forward. What can an up and coming artist do to gain recognition for the release?
Mm-hmm. Visuals are important. Don't look like other people. Like have a unique, like do a cool music video. I don't know, like do something different. Have an agenda, say something powerful. Be outspoken, you know, just wave your freak flag, you know, like I'm different. This is what I'm trying to say. And put your stake in the ground, you know. I think visuals are really important because I think just we consume so much daily. When the moment you see something different, you're like, well, that's really cool. I would say try and do something cool with your visuals. Look different, have a different look, you know, like wear something weird. Yeah.
Okay. You know, the term rock star came about because they were rock stars. They were different than us. There was a separation between them and the audience. We literally elevated them on big stages. And now we have social media, we have TikTok, we have the ability of the audience, the fan, to have this direct connection with the artist, which is great if you're a fan, and it's probably great if you're the artist. How great is it if you're the manager?
Yeah, meaning,
It's another thing you have to deal with.
yeah.
That you didn't have to deal with before.
Well, so I kind of have a different approach to that. I think I always encourage my clients to, obviously we go through an album cycle, we release, and then we tour. We'll tour the new music. I think they really need to go away for a while, get off social media, delete it, take a break. You have to create some mystique and like some mystery. Like no one knew what the Weeknd looked like for like 3 or 4 years. You know what I mean? And finally, showed his face and whoa, like we don't have that anymore. So you kind of have to create that. So it's like go through your album cycle or your singles or you're releasing and maybe go on tour, you do something, but go away for a bit. Get off social media, don't post all the time. Like no one wants to see that. You need to go get re-inspired, refreshed, and if you don't do that, I feel like a lot of times you just keep making the same music. So as a manager, I say, go through your album cycle, do your thing, but go away for a bit. Go travel, go get different experiences, get new inspiration. Else it's too much, like no one wants to see that all the time. Yeah.
So when you started out as an intern 15 years ago, A&R still meant going to the club,
Yep.
seeking out talent, and now a lot of it is relegated to TikTok and social media and different platforms. What do you think of that? Like with the evolution of A&R, and is it better? Is it worse? Is that not the metric?
Yeah. I mean, A&R is still definitely there. I mean, I think they definitely go to different places now. Like really the new A&Rs are like the people who do playlisting at Spotify and Apple, because like they're out listening to all new music. Everyone is trying to get on New Music Friday because that's the best playlists to be on. I think the role is still there. It's just evolved a bit. Yeah, so it's like in playlisting, they're on TikTok, they're on, all the different platforms trying to find new sounds and like what's popping, but I don't think that's a bad thing. There's more exposure to different types of music. We're hearing more music than ever. I think it's good. Yeah.
And along with how A&R's changed, how music's changed, record companies have changed. They've kind of been hollowed out in the middle. You've got, the upper executive and people coming into the company, but it's different. And how have you seen that evolution? How does it affect your artists? And I mean, what do you think of the modern record company? Have they come along willingly? Are they easier to deal with, harder to deal with? Do all your artists need a record label, or do you have any TI? That's a lot of questions, but
Yeah.
maybe talk about record companies and the relationship to them.
Yeah, listen, they're good. They're great. I think it's really important to have like someone who is waving your flag at the record label, because you go somewhere like Republic or Universal in the US, they have like 280 artists, right? So it's really hard to kind of differentiate yourself, or I keep going back to being unique, and that's what's going to differentiate yourself if you get to that level, So I think it's important. You have to have someone who's like waving the Lindsay flag or waving the Steven flag at the record label that's like gonna be in meetings and say your name. Hey, what about blah, blah, I think it's important to find the right home. Just because they're a major doesn't mean it's gonna be good. Maybe you have a certain sound and this label does this sound really well. Maybe you should go there. So I think the record label, it's a great partner to have. I don't think you necessarily need one. I mean, a lot of artists come up, don't have one. They release stuff on SoundCloud, release stuff on YouTube. That's how they get noticed. But they're great. I think they're necessary. If you really want to be top, you kind of have to have a label.
And what kind of record deals are being offered these days? Is still a 360? I know that Universal is certainly on a baby band, will just take an additional 10% of everything. They're the manager. That can't
That's
help.
wild. Yeah, that's crazy. A lot of, listen, all the ancillary and rights are always in there. There's always, they try and take a piece of touring, try and take a piece of branding, try and take a piece of everything. What I would say to anyone here is just don't sign anything without a lawyer looking at it, please. A lot of times, you know, if you're young and you're like, I can't afford a lawyer, a lot of times you can get the label to pay legal on top. You can negotiate a different rate. You can say, hey, I'll pay you out of my advance or whatever it is. Just don't sign anything without a lawyer looking at it, please, because you're just going to be in a bad situation and you're going to just be hemorrhaging money to the record label. But listen, if you have a good lawyer, you can negotiate a lot of that stuff out. We always negotiate all ancillary rates, like to very, very low, or just get them out of there completely. There's no reason why they need to be taking a piece of your touring. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, and on branding, it should be on what deals they bring in. You know what I mean? Sure, you can have 10%, but you go get the deal. I'm not getting it. You know what I mean? You're going to work for it.
I tell young artists, you might not be able to get a manager to talk to you, and you might not be able to get a record label to talk to you, but you can get a lawyer to talk to you. You just have to pay the out rate, and it's the best money you'll spend.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a record label in the world that would sign an artist who hadn't. I mean, it's right in the contract. You have to have independent legal advice, but don't skimp on that part of it. So speaking of lawyers, management, lawyer, artist, how do you work with lawyers, the artist lawyer? It's you're on the same side most of the time, but not all the time. So what's your relationship with lawyers, and do you kind of direct artists to certain law firms, not other firms?
Absolutely. I think there's some firms that are excellent, and there's some, I have my favorites. Having a good lawyer is like really, really important. It's really, I think a lawyer and a manager really work hand in hand. And it's good to have someone that you work well with, just as it's going to be really difficult. There's a lot of lawyers I see that trying to manage the artist at the same time, putting things in the artist's ear. Well, you're on a different side. You have to be aligned for your client. It's really, really important. And just find someone that you like working with, and you have the same vision for the client. I'd say that's really important.
Any more questions? Yes, they're right in the back, baseball hat.
You talk a lot about the Weeknd beat coming up, with him having a really unique sound. What advice can you give to experimental or alternative artists looking for a large pop?
Sorry, say that. So say that last part again.
Sorry. What advice can you give to experimental or alternative artists looking to branch out to a larger audience?
That's a good one. Something that might be good, maybe you want to open for somebody. Maybe you can get an opening slot on a tour that maybe isn't your direct fan base, but maybe a little bit of them are mixed in. Maybe you could do that. That would be good. That's going to open you up to more people. Collab with different artists, different producers, different songwriters. Get a random feature on your project that maybe you would never think of. I don't know, hey, you want to jump on this song and put it together, we can put it out together. That's great because you're going to tap into their fan base. Work with different producers, different songwriters, people you would normally work with. I think that will really help with that. Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So there's been a really big push recently with Dolby Atmos and spatial audio in terms of mixes. Is that kind of where things are headed?
Yeah, I mean, we do mix for all of that now. So yeah, that's absolutely on every single project. We mix for both. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it sounds awesome. So.
Yeah.
I have a question for, because I think your journey is really cool, but also
Thank
your
you.
journey doesn't stop. So what are some maybe future visions or goals that you have either for yourself or for your
Oh wow. That's a good question. Let me think. I really think here. I think I would love to take on a really cool developing act. I feel like a lot of the artists we do are kind of already at a certain level. I'd love to take on some more developing acts. I think that would be really cool and start doing that again, because that's kind of where the company started. I mean, we started with Abel, we started with Doja Cat, we started with a lot of young developing acts and developed them over years and years and years. I think I kind of like to get back to that again. It's a little more grassroots, it's a little more fun. Like when you get to the top, everything's so serious. So I think doing some more developing acts would be really fun. I think I want to get back in that place. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
When the company first started, were there values that you had in place in mind that no matter what happens, you're going to stick to?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my boss Sal has always had incredible values, which are really centered around family and community in the workplace. And anytime I describe the company, I say like we're all like brothers and sisters, and we all get along really well. We don't really have anyone at the company who I'm like, oh, I don't like them or anything like that. We're really, really close, and we have such a great culture. We really support each other, and you know, like a lot of times, like shit will hit the fan, like things will go wrong, and I know I can call Dina, who manages Studios House Mafia, and be like, Dina, I don't know what to do with this. Can you help me? And she'll be like, yes, absolutely. Always have people jumping in trying to help. And like I look at other management companies, and managers there are like against each other, or they're not getting along, or they're fighting or whatever. But at our company, it's like we're all working to elevate each other. And I think it's really unique, and you don't see that often. So, yeah.
What does the company do for fun? Like, do you have like a softball team or?
We like to go bowling. We go bowling, have a few cocktails. That's always fun. A lot of times we just like go to the studio, hang out, play music, listen to records, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So we have professional music students here in creative industries, and they're going to go in the world.
Yes.
Is it better from your view, and maybe better is not the right word, to work for a large company or a small one? There's benefits and drawbacks to both, but
Yeah.
what would you tell them?
I would say, man, I don't know. I would take whatever you can get. Like, you know, if you get a job at a big company, take it. If you get a job at a small company, take it. If you get both, I don't know, weigh them out and go which one feels better. But any experience you get is great. So I don't think, you know, at a small company, you're going to get to do, like for me, like I did everything. Learned every single thing, like publishing, label, because we were a record label, booking, we did everything from top to bottom. We all did it in-house, so I got to learn everything. There's 3 of us for the longest time. But if you go to a big place, you're probably going to get more like specialized experience. If you're in the marketing department, you're going to do all marketing, really understand how to put a release plan together. That's really valuable too. I think both are great. I would take whatever you can get and just get your feet wet, get experience, make connections.
So what you got was 2 people, and you made 3.
Yeah.
And you know, you're young and you need to pay some bills, but at what point did you go, wow, this is happening. Wow, this is big, this is growing, and it's going to be a thing. I mean, at the beginning it must have been, well, I have a job, but at some point there must have been this time where like, wow.
Yeah, there are a few moments like that. I'd say the first moment was after we signed the Weeknd, we put out Trilogy, which was the 3 mixtapes together. And we really were trying to work some songs at radio in the US and weren't really getting any traction. Nothing was really playing except for Crew Love, but didn't do that well because we didn't have a visual or a video. And I remember we went on tour and we sold out 3 nights at the O2 in London, but we had 0 songs on the radio. And we're all like looking at each other, we're like, this is like 60,000 fans, you know, in a country that isn't even our home. That was like, oh shit, this is actually something. That was really cool. And then I think the success of probably The Hills or Can't Feel My Face off Beauty Behind the Madness, that was a big, big moment. I was like, oh, this is actually going to go somewhere. Like, this is actually going to do something. And then, yeah, Blinding Lights was just, that was mind-blowing. Crazy, huge, huge, huge song. Yeah.
Time is not our friend.
Okay.
So if there's any questions left in the audience, I have a couple more, but last chance. In the back. Okay, we got 2. We go. No, I pointed to you first.
I will say I'm an absolutely huge fan of the Weeknd, and when I saw that you were the speaker for this event, I was kind of fanboying my room, not gonna lie.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you for coming.
So specifically for April, were there any like standout moments where you're like this is happening for SALXCO, like this is the moment where like our brand is shooting up and we're getting on the international stage. Like I've been
Yeah.
Just, I don't know, this event is really important to me.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for coming and thank you for supporting him. Listen, like there was another time when we sold out Barclays in New York, early, like early like Beauty Behind the Madness days. And I remember just looking around and just like, I was like, holy shit. It's a lot of humans, like 20,000, 30,000 people. I was like, oh my gosh, that was a pivotal moment. Having people like Stevie Wonder or Quincy Jones come up to him in like random places and just loving his music, understanding his music, getting that validation from your peers is like, that was really cool. Cause I'm like, oh man, they get it. You know, I don't have to like beg everyone to get, I'm like, do you understand us? You know, so that's really cool. Yeah, there's big pivotal moments like that, that really just felt incredible because yes, like he was big in Canada and stuff like that, but it was a very long road to get to like making hits, even for him as developing artist, as a writer, working with Max Martin, working with different people, trying to get him there. That was like 6 or 7 years of just like heavy slogging and like everyone saying no, no one understanding us. So, having those moments just, it was really incredible because it was the validation that we needed for so long. So yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, obviously, getting in at the very ground floor
Yeah.
isn't an opportunity that comes to most people.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a two-part question. One, what was sort of the lead-up? How much were you chasing it, and how much did it kind of fall into your lap?
Mm-hmm.
And two, not necessarily how does one improve their chances of doing something like that, but more overall, especially with just the job market getting harder to get in, period, across the board. How does one improve their chances of getting their foot?
Yeah. So part one, I was and still am extremely driven. I really, 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 really wanted it badly. Like I was willing to like do whatever. I was like, I'm down. Like whatever, like toothbrush, 4 a.m., got it, no problem. So when I met my boss, I was like, I'll do whatever. Like I'll go to the studio, I'll clean the toilets, and I literally did. I was just so hungry and had a thirst to understand everything. Wanted to do all the jobs no one else wanted to do. Like the music industry is like that. You know what I mean? You really have to be aggressive and put yourself out there and have a vision, have a goal. So if you want it, you have to go grab it. It's not going to come fall into your lap. You have to grab it and you have to work really, really hard. So it's kind of a decision for you if you want to do that or not and, go that route. What was part two? Part two was how to differentiate yourself or how to...
No, I mean, how does one get their foot in the door just in general? I mean, like, you say when you met your boss, what did that like?
Yeah, so I had one of my teachers had been like, hey, you got to meet this guy. He does things differently. He's a little different. He doesn't take no for an answer, but he was very driven. And so I had an intro from a teacher. I would use like whatever resources you have, like Steven or anyone at the school, be like, intro me with people, like you just like go intro me with this people, go to Universal and not go show up at the front desk, hand in your resume. Like don't be shy because this industry is not easy to get into and you have to really like get your elbows out and like force your way through. Go to Sony, go to Warner, go to all the publishing companies, drop off resumes, show up every day, be like, hi, can I talk to blah, blah, I really want a job, I want an internship. Just be noisy, be the bad smell that's there that won't go away, and someone will hire you. They will. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's wrap up with one last question.
Okay.
What would you like your, what would you like your legacy to be? I mean, you're young. I think about it, but...
I don't think about that stuff yet, but let me think. I think hopefully that I left the industry better than I found it. I made even small incremental change in people's lives and artists' lives that made their lives better, made it a happier place, a nicer place, helped make difference in people's lives. Really, that's what it's all about when you have artists saying, oh my God, thank you so much for helping me get this or whatever. That means a lot to me. It doesn't have to be big stuff, small stuff to help different artists, things like that. Yeah, I don't know.
I think you do.
Okay, good.
Well, our time is up, so I'm sad. But I'm very, very happy, and we're very lucky to have had you for this hour. So
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
So I stayed pretty close to 2 o'clock. Just final note, the series continues. We have Christian McBride coming in March. We may have someone prior to that, but stay tuned. RSVP. He's probably going to perform. I'm talking to his people tomorrow. And if you don't know who he is, he's probably the top double bass player in the world, jazz player. But he's also an educator and a communicator and radio host, and just an amazing human being. And it'd be sad if you missed it. So see you here in March and maybe sooner. So thanks for coming. Really appreciate that.